let's pivot to another country that is looking quite silly at the moment. Djene's homeland, the land of what is the UK the land of? Fish and chips.
Fish
And
and
Rolling,
chips.
and Rolling Stone.
Imperial decline.
Imperial
Ooh,
decline.
I was trying not to be mean. But okay, there's that.
It's
Djene.
also, I mean, Boris Johnson is one of the few one of the few world leaders where sometimes, I kind of wish that the UK had a Haitian style retirement plan.
Necklacing.
I'm a little worried that he'll come back.
Who?
I don't think
Oh,
Boris Johnson.
Well, Toussaint, can you read the
Sure.
quotes on the screen, Toussaint? Please.
Sure.
Toussaint is also Vanna White for the show.
Vanna White.
Once again,
Pat always
yeah.
introduces Vanna. I'll just say that.
Black
Prime-
Vanna. Can I call you Black Vanna? Can I call you Blana?
Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced his resignation Thursday amid a mass revolt by top members of his government, marking an end to 3 tumultuous years in power, in which he brazenly bent and sometimes broke the rules of British politics. Months of defiance ended almost with a shrug as Johnson stood outside number 10 Downing Street and conceded that his party wanted him gone. Them's the breaks, he said.
That was the break.
Yeah, and then somebody did the sad trumpet noise.
Have I told you the story of what happened to Boris Johnson's Turkish ancestor? So Boris Johnson has a Turkish ancestor called Ali Kemal, and Ali Kemal was he was basically against the Young Turks, and after the First World War, he came into the government, and he issued an arrest warrant for Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, which proved to be not a very good career move for him, and ended up with him getting lynched outside a courtroom, I think. So, not the Boris Johnson his family does not have a great history of successful ends in politics. Well, that's the Boris Johnson thing. But yeah, he's gone. After months, it's been like all the time I've been in Britain, the ongoing story is like, how much longer can Boris Johnson survive? And there's been some pretty big challenges. A couple of months back, there was a leadership contest within the Conservative Party. So just to explain to the viewers, the British system is a very strange system. It's a very archaic system. And so the Prime Minister is the leader of the political party that holds the majority in Westminster. So, but the Prime Minister is not elected on a mass mandate. He's just an MP. He's just with a constituency, just like any other MP. And his position as Prime Minister is entirely dependent on his position as the leader of the party. A few months ago, there was a challenge. There was a vote to see if he would, if there was a vote of confidence. He won that vote within his party, but he was gravely wounded by that vote because most of the backbenchers, that is the MPs who do not have some kind of position in the government, and because the executive is staffed by MPs from the governing party, there's a lot of Conservative MPs in the government. Most of the backbenchers did not back Boris Johnson, even though he ultimately won this no confidence vote. And it was kind of a Pyrrhic victory. Margaret Thatcher, similar things that happened to her. There was a leadership challenge. She won, but she ended up having to go later. So Boris Johnson has had increasing, there's been increasing, unrest within the Conservative Party about the about the future, the future of the Conservative Party. And most recently, I think the most important thing for Conservative MPs, there are a number of by-elections, including in safe Conservative seats, in which the Conservatives lost. And that seems to have sort of triggered the rats to escape the Boris Johnson vote. And now Boris Johnson has resigned, and there will be a contest within the caucus of the Conservative Party in Parliament over who will be the leader of the party, and therefore who will be the new prime minister. And Boris Johnson is staying on as a caretaker for now, but there will be a contest, because I think the Conservatives are counting that, Boris is now a liability in an election, so they're going to try and get a new leader, and they're going to try and, turn the ship around. The Conservatives still have a lot of things going in their favor, even as they become more unpopular. The way the electoral system works, the way constituencies are set up in the country, the Conservatives have like a geographical advantage. But if people, for example, start voting tactically in the elections, that there is a formal or informal alliance between the Liberal Party and the Labour Party, it could spell the end of the Conservative government. Not that I think there's much hope for a Labour/Liberal coalition government to really change the direction of the country, but the Conservatives are concerned they might lose power. And then, of course, the broader context for this is endless scandals in the Conservative Party, partly to do with breaking COVID rules, sex scandals in the Parliament, and also at the same time, you're having an enormous inflationary crisis in Great Britain. Cost of living is going up. People are having a hard time. So you have all the same problems you have in the United States related to global supply chains, but compounded by the economic fallout of Brexit, which a lot of the big plans that the Conservative talked about when Brexit happened, which was about redistributing wealth in the country, leveling up region of the country that had been previously ignored. A lot of those things have turned out to be nothing. And so people are increasingly disillusioned and angry about just the dire economic situation in the country. So I think the Conservatives, who are a little bit more able than American Republicans to engage in this sort of spend national conservatism, I think the Conservatives are looking for a new leader who can stem the loss of support of the Conservative Party and help maintain them in power. There's still a long time to go till an election, so they still have a bit of time to turn things around. A new prime minister does not mean a new election.
There's a super chat on the screen asking about Hugh Grant tweeting out that people should play Benny Hill music while the Tories were getting interviewed outside of Parliament, and people did it. You know anything about this, Djene?
I vaguely heard this story, but I did not actually see anybody doing this. But this sounds that there is a I would say a great deal of discontent towards the Conservative government, and particularly towards Boris Johnson. Although he still has strong areas of support, this move may not work out for them, because Boris Johnson, he was able to sort of capitalize on Brexit. He delivered Brexit, and I think there are some people who are still loyal to him. So this may be problematic for the Conservative Party, but we'll see. We'll have to see how it goes and who they elect as their new leader. But a lot of Conservatives are really angry about all these scandals, particularly the COVID ones, where it looked like Boris Johnson was having parties and just having a good time, breaking the COVID restrictions, which on two levels is concerning. Firstly, it's like they're being hypocrites. That's the sort of surface level. People who were not able to see dying relatives are really bitter about this, right? People who had to leave their grandmothers to alone in their homes with no one to see them over COVID are really bitter that Boris Johnson was,
doing whatever Boris Johnson wanted.
Doing what he wanted. The other thing is a deeper question. It's like, were these Conservatives passing restrictions for COVID that they themselves didn't even believe it, and were just doing this for opportunistic reasons. So there's a whole sort of crisis in legitimacy. The problem for the opposition is that the opposition has been completely docile and hampered. The Labour Party has been waging war on the left within its party rather than emerging as an effective opposition. Their strategy is largely, let's hope the Conservative Party implodes and we can pick up the pieces.
So I've got a question to follow up there. The only major policy program that the Tory government under Boris Johnson managed to see through was Brexit, which was a catastrophic own goal. Is the UK becoming ungovernable?
That's a really good question. I mean, it depends how you define ungovernable. I still think
more or less than the United States.
I think we're heading more and more in that direction. I think politics is becoming more polarized, and the culture wars as framing politics is seeping into the United Kingdom, and that's not just like it's not just a parallel. There's literal connections connecting right-wing politics to right-wing American groups, to right-wing British groups, and so we are seeing this kind of more radical right-wing politics taking over and becoming more and more dominant in the Conservative Party, and the opposition that we have is not very effective, and because of the nature of the electoral system, I don't think it's super likely in the short term that the Conservative government will fall. They may lose seats, but the British system is a kind of winner takes all. You can win absolute power in the parliament, on 43, 42% of the vote. And you don't need to govern with anybody else because our electoral system is a first past the post system. So so long as the Conservative Party can maintain cohesion, now Brexit is over, that issue is off the table. They may well be able to pull it back, and they may be able to remobilize some of that Brexit sentiment. And the point I would make an addendum about Brexit. The problem with Brexit was not necessarily the idea to leave the European Union. There would have been good ways and good reasons to leave the European Union. It's just that the way that Britain left the European Union was a way which benefited capital and the Conservative Party, and not one. There was no Lexit, no left-wing Brexit, because the left, historically, people should be aware, it was the left in British politics that opposed the European Union and the right that supported it. And the reason was the European Union imposed all kinds of restrictions on economic policies that countries could take. It imposed a kind of fiscal discipline on countries. It created and it increasingly moved aspects of the administrative state away from national governments to a supranational government, which was very hard for that lacked democratic oversight, right? And that's good for capital, right? The Lexit version of Brexit would have been, using this sovereignty to engage in redistributive policies, but that's not really what is going on.
That was never going to happen.
Well, it wasn't going to happen with the constellation of forces that were bringing about Brexit.
And it was never, and those constellations were a consequence of political and institutional economic developments with very deep roots. And if the UK had the ability to do a labor Brexit, then it would have been necessary because it would have had a strong enough left to evade the EU, to push the EU in a left direction. But of course, we got the result that we did because the Conservatives have been in ascendancy, and there is no institutional, organizational, economic, you name it, foundation for the kind of left that you'd need to do. It was always a fever dream.
And not only that, it's rekindled problems in Northern Ireland, which
Scotland.
Scotland
Well,
is.
It's offered Scotland a solution.
Although again, Scotland leaving the Union is again, it's an open question whether Britain would allow it now, as they had a referendum, and also whether the European Union would want Scotland to secede from Britain and become part of the European Union, because within the European Union themselves, especially Spain, that precedent, which we saw in Catalonia, is something they do not want to encourage. So as much, for example, as the Europeans might be like, oh yeah, like getting Scotland in the European Union would be cool, it would be a punishment for Britain and England. On the flip side, that sets all kinds of uncomfortable precedents for other countries where you have secessionist movements that are quite powerful. Because remember, the Spanish, when the Catalonians voted for independence, they just rolled on in, arrested the leaders, sent them into exile, and they were like, no, that whole like
not up for negotiation.
Not up for negotiation.
I think that a lot will hinge on Northern Ireland. That for the Brits, for the Europeans rather, for the EU, Scotland, like you said, is a double-edged sword. As much as you might want to indulge your revenge against the English, you end up creating headaches for yourself. However, Northern Ireland reunifying with the rest of the country would be a solution to a bigger headache for the Europeans. And potentially that's where the fragmentation begins.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.